Yes, especially for these times that we are facing right now, I wanted to share a talk from Eckhart that is quite some time ago, but it's still, there is war and actually bad things happening every second, huh? Or every minute, every second, yeah. So yes, it's a serious talk this time, and yeah, I hope you're interested in that and how we can help to change what is going on out there. As we are all connected, we can do quite more than we think we can. So enjoy listening. And I want to start telling you that Eckhart actually is responding with his talk to a letter of some person who wrote him. How can you be happy, joyful about life when there is things like war and crime, and other bad stuff happening. I'm not wanting to count it all together. You know what bad things are out there. So yeah, and actually this person who wrote him the letter, the same thing that Eckhart thought, I thought the same as he was reading it. This person probably never has experienced these victims to humanity or to life, actually. We do that also to animals. There's things that are not right. So he's really responding in a way that it's really interesting because of the fact that this person never experienced it but is asking these questions. Because most of the time people that are really experiencing bad things, they have other questions than this. Well, anyhow, enjoy listening to this really interesting talk of Eckhart. And maybe in between or later on I will also add some of my thoughts to it as well.
Is anybody being helped, you or anybody else, by your unwillingness to find peace within? It's not the case that you actually go out into the world in order to alleviate the suffering or to stop all the genocide and kidnappings and torture, as you put it. Now, if you did feel called upon to go to some corner of the earth where violent or dreadful things are happening to alleviate suffering, that's another matter. If you look at human history, you can see that these things have happened thousands of years ago already. They continue to happen throughout history, to the extent that, as I sometimes put it, reading history of humanity seems like reading the story of insanity with a few lucid moments here and there. And in particular the 20th century, a place of incredible insanity and suffering inflicted by humans on other humans. Now, once you see that your unwillingness to embrace spiritual awakening because so much unconsciousness is happening all over the planet that is the cause of the violence, that doesn't really make sense, does it? Your mind is saying, I'm refusing to invite the spiritual dimension into my life or to enter the awakening process because so many people on this planet are unconscious. Therefore, I refuse to become conscious. It's a convenient excuse for the egoic mind to stay in charge and to keep running the show. And while it does that, it can complain, of course. It's lovely, isn't it? The complaining about all the dreadful things that are happening. Does that help anyone? No. Did the Buddha, who taught 2,500 years ago how to go beyond suffering, did he say, I'm not telling you how to go beyond suffering because so many humans on this planet are still suffering. Let's wait for them to come to an end of suffering, and then I'll tell you the secret, and then we can all become enlightened. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't start with let's wait for the rest of the universe to become enlightened, and then we can enter the spiritual dimension. It has to start from you. Any change on the planet, in order to be true change and not just a variation on the same theme, must entail a change in consciousness, because whatever humans produce, whatever they manifest externally, arises and corresponds to arises out of their state of consciousness. If that state of consciousness is dysfunctional, disharmonious, negative, fearful, angry, and millions live in that state, identified with their ego, then you get a huge collective egos fighting other collective egos, and that's the insanity. Change, we both agree that change is necessary, but it doesn't come from out there. It would also apply to your own lives. There are some people who come to me and say, I have to sort out various outstanding matters in my life, that big problem still in my business situation and my living situation, and this, I don't really have time to go into all this spiritual stuff because there's too much for me to deal with at the moment, or as the expression goes, I have too much on my plate to have time for spiritual awakening. That has to wait, but I have to sort these things out first. And if you do that, of course, you'll find that the time never comes, because there's no end to the problems that arise out there. Jesus told the same story in the parable of the wedding feast. People are invited to a wedding feast, and each person has their particular excuse why they cannot come to the wedding feast. One person says, oh, I've got to have some business dealings to do, just have to sell my cows and sheep and need to do that. Let me first do that, maybe I'll come then. The other one says, oh, my father has just died, let me first bury my father. Every excuse starts with the words, let me first do this. And that shows the prevalent attitude of believing that Something out there needs to change before I can, or in your case, before I feel justified in looking for inner peace. But that is a fallacy. The external peace can only come when humans, or at least a sufficiently large number of humans, embrace inner peace. And you can't wait for the torture and killings to stop and then embrace inner peace. Change happens from the inside out, not from the outside in. So yes, knowing that at this very moment, every second, every minute, dreadful things are happening on the planet. Of course, it's always been like that. At this very moment, somebody's being murdered, perhaps bombs are exploding, people are torturing, kidnapping others, warfare between armies or gangs. Of course, it's happening every moment. Does your anxiety help that situation, your non-peace? No. But if there's a shift in consciousness, there may be a change, and that starts with you.
So what else Eckhart said in the end is that please don't stop desiring or that thinking that the desirability of peace is not possible because there is violence and war and bad things happening. It's not helpful, supportive, or useful to produce more of the other beautiful creations of life.
Spiritual awakening, that is the next step in human evolution, because humans have not come to the end of their evolution. Humans are a work in progress. It's not finished yet. It would be terrible, imagine that. Humans as they are now, a finished product, crazy. And that's why some people, because they have misperceptions about humans and they have misperceptions about God, and then they say, how could God allow all this to happen? All this, this is based on two misperceptions, that humans are a finished product created by God a long time ago, and that God is a patriarchal figure controlling things from above, or has lost interest completely and walked off, maybe somewhere else, because he realized that he didn't do a good job. There's the level of words and thoughts, but more importantly, there is that to which the words and the thoughts that underlie the words point, and that is the essence of our gathering here. And that to which they point is the essence of who you are. Either awaken, or in the case of many of you, to deepen the realization or the connectedness with who you truly are. And when I say truly, I mean in the depths of your being, and I mean a dimension that is deeper than your personal history. And most humans are completely unaware that there is a dimension of consciousness in them that is deeper than their personality, their personal self. So they are trapped on the surface level of reality, and that is not a pleasant place to be. You are basically then trapped in your conditioned personality, the person, the egoic self, and you know, somehow, you know that there is something not right. You know somewhere, instinctively, you know there's something so important that's not here yet and that's missing in my life. There's something wrong. And how humans interpret that mentally, what they perceive or feel to be wrong, varies from person to person. One person might say, what's wrong is that all humans don't have the same religion that we have. There's something deeply wrong. So we need to either convert them or kill them. Or other humans say there's something deeply wrong about society. They project it outward. Of course, there's lots wrong with society, but what is society? It's the sum total of the individuals. There's something deeply wrong with my personal history. It's so unsatisfying. Why? Why did so many things go wrong in my life? Things that weren't supposed to happen. I imagined things going very differently. Not all these failed marriage and divorce and all this dreadful suffering, and then there was the illness, and then there was that, and then there were great achievements, and then there were all again the opposite. Something is looking for the next thing to feel fulfilled by. Possessions, recognition, something missing. There's always something missing. What they don't know is that what is missing, what they look for outside, or they blame others for preventing them from finding it. You can blame entire groups of people for making you feel unfulfilled. It's a very common thing these days, and very satisfying to the false sense of self, because if you can see yourself as a victim, either on a personal level or collective level, that gives you a somewhat satisfying sense of identity, satisfying in a completely non-satisfying way. It's a paradox. You feel good about feeling bad. And the more you can complain about others, and the better you feel, but it's bad. But the ego thinks it's better. And you feel, now you know who you are more fully. It's a fiction. So you can emphasize your victim identity on the personal level to give you some kind of stronger sense of self. Or you can emphasize your identity as the one who is victorious in the world, me. The ego doesn't mind which one. They're both equally strong and equally false. Usually the egoic self is interpreted by people as people who have a high sense of, exaggerated sense of who they are, who think they're better than others, and that is one aspect of ego. But there's another aspect of ego which is equally strong, and that is people who have a self-image, a self-identity of being more of a victim than somebody else or others. Oh, that works too. To create a more satisfying sense of identity for themselves, but it's all in the head. It's ultimately all consists of the structure of thought. You don't realize that you are looking at reality through a veil of your conditioned mind. And really what you're seeing is the veil of your conditioning, and there's something there behind it, but you can't clearly see it at all. It's a dreadful state to be in, but it's normal. This is why I sometimes say normal equals insane. The question of identity is the most important question in your life. Who am I? And you know that it's important. But you don't know where your true identity is, because at school nobody taught you. It should be the most important thing that children are taught. Discover your essence identity. And you have come out of this long line of ancestry, and that gives you your identity. You might even have a title. In some countries they still have titles. So you grow up and your 10-year-old girl is told, oh, your name is Lady so-and-so. Oh. Now if you're trapped in that, to get out of that, not easy. You've been given that sense of specialness, and so the main core of your identity lies then in your ancestry. And it can have you in its grip until you're on your deathbed. And you never know that you are trapped in an illusory sense of identity. Now, most people don't have that, but they may have other things. They may have more possessions than others in their family. Or they may have achievements in that they came out of nothing and then they achieved this, that, and then they identify with the material achievements and so on, possessions. And that can give you a great sense of identity too. Never satisfying for long, that's the thing. There's always this element of unsatisfactoriness, of something really important is missing. And then, of course, you might have a body that's more beautiful than others, then you can focus on that, and that gives you a sense of superiority towards others. So, and that's temporarily a nice thing. And then as the years pass, a day will come when you look in the mirror and something has changed. That beautiful body has shrunk or expanded, whatever the case may be. So it's normal for the ego to feel diminished because it always compares itself to others, and then the ego sometimes tries to compensate. Again, you have to arrange your identity somehow. Then it tries to compensate for this diminishment, for example, by saying, well, just a few thoughts compensate for the diminishment of the ego, and it's all unconscious thinking. For example, the thoughts go, oh, look at that beach bum there. I bet all he does is hang around the beach every day and surfing, not a thought in his head. Okay, then that makes you feel better for a little while. If you're in your big car, you can feel superior towards others, and then others will look. But then there may be a man on a bicycle, he's looking at you in your big car, and say, look at this materialist. Whereas I am completely non-attached to these things. And I'm totally happy on my bicycle because I'm beyond these things. That's a very subtle so-called spiritual ego. You can feel superior because you're more spiritual than others, not realizing that also is a mind-made sense of self, a mind-made identity. Amazing. And many people carry a very unhappy or predominantly uneasy, unhappy, complaining, insufficient personality with them, and that's who they think they are. And nobody has taught them that ultimately is not who you are. That's the conditioning of your mind. And that is the emotions that also accompany the conditioning of your mind. And so the question arises, well, if I'm not that, who am I? And that is the most important question you can ask yourself. Now, in our mainstream culture, they will tell you that that question makes no sense whatsoever, because they believe, obviously, you are your past and you are who you are as a person. They deny that there is anything else. The continuous stream of thinking, which is the basis for the personality, has already awakened in you and has brought you here. But that goes something beyond the personal. That is something, what has ultimately brought you here is the fact that human consciousness is evolving. And the evolving human consciousness through you has brought you here in order to deepen the awakening. In the mind stream, there needs to be a little opening, a little crack, and in most of you that's there, and in some of you there's more than that already. And in that opening, then the words can go in, and then that to which the words point is recognized.
So I hope this talk made you feel very alive, aware, and you could feel your essence more and more, stronger and stronger. Have a wonderful day and spread this feeling to all around you.